Homestead Miami Speedway plays host once again to the start of an IndyCar series here on iRacing, like it did for the Verizon IndyCar series a couple of years back in time. But hey, it's a track which we love coming to. It's a track that will see 2 and 3 ride racing on its parabolic banking, and there is nowhere better to start the iAdvance Motorsports Indy Elite Series, and there's nowhere better to start the Ricmotech High Performance Sim Racing Equipment Triple Crown. This is RaceSpot TV, this is iRacing Live. Welcome to Sunday Night Prime Time, and it will start now.
Simulated racing can be awesome, but it can also be kind of a free-for-all. Interestingly, auto racing faced the same problem in its earlier days. Whether it was on the back roads, the beaches, or the city streets, the racing was fun. But there was always a certain level of chaos and danger, until some folks came along and put some order to all of this. Stuff like official racetracks, regulations about weight and equipment, and enforcement of standards. That's what gave us high-speed excitement, fast-paced action, and photo finishes. That's when racing became racing. The guys over at iRacing.com have made the same transformation in the world of sim racing. Sure, they've got the most accurate tracks and realistic cars out there, but that's just the start. See, iRacing analyzes the performance and results of each driver in every race, so you can be sure you're always placed in races where the competition will be tight, and that those reckless drivers who ruin it for us all are kept in the pits. Not to mention that with over 45,000 active members already in their vast community, you can find races day and night, so you can always get in on the action. You can even join a league of your favorite series. And since updates are always automatic, you don't have to worry about software and can focus on the track. Zip up your fire suit and check out iRacing.com.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to RaceSpot TV Primetime here, streaming live on iRacing Live as we get ourselves ready for round number 1 of the iAdvance Motorsports Indy Elite Series, streaming live on iRacing Live. It's a part of the Ricmotech High Performance Sim Racing Equipment Triple Crown here as we kick off a new season of competition. Of course, we're only a couple of months removed from the 16th Street Racing League, but now the spring is almost upon us, and that means it's time to go back racing again. Once again, we are here tonight at Homestead Miami Speedway, getting ready then for a new season of competition. Will Vincent, Aaron Likings, the gang is back together again, Aaron.
Yes, wonderful to be back, and if the conclusion to the 16th Street League, which most of the racers from that are here tonight, if the ending of last season in 16th Street is anything for what we're going to see in this series, well, I mean, every season we seem to do together gets better and better. And last season in 16th, it came down to the final lap, just a few drops of fuel to separate the champion and not. And, of course, the battle with Joe Branch winning that race, amazing. And, well, it seems each season gets better and better. And I don't know how we can top what we've done in the past, but I bet the drivers on track are going to find a way to do so.
Yep. 10 seconds left of practice, and then we go qualifying. 2 laps, 5 minutes to try and set yourself your fastest lap time. As you can see, the checkered flag is out now to signify the end of practice, and now these guys are going to head themselves to qualifying. Qualifying here can be tough, Aaron. You're likely to get your fastest time the second time around, but it's a momentum qualifying session. You're going to have to make sure that you, from the second you exit pit road, keep that momentum all the way down to start your run.
And one thing we should mention, the winds are blustery here today. It's winds are out of the east at 10 miles an hour, so on one side of the track, you're going to have a nice tailwind, but coming out of the east, going into turn 1, when you turn in, that wind's going to be a crosswind, and drivers are going to have to be really careful to not let that wind catch them out and push them out towards the inside in between 1 and 2.
Yeah, there we are then. Let's have a look at qualifying. Times will come up on the left-hand side of your screen. In a couple of moments' time, we're going to ride ourselves on board for a couple of seconds there with Christopher Demeritt in the number 144 car. Plenty of drivers going to take to the track, including Stephen Wilson in the number 15 machine, running in the iAdvance Motorsports number 15 machine. Some celebrity star power once again in this series here today. Well, we'll get that ticker running along the top of your screen. You'll see the fastest laps as they come through, coming up on your screen. But drivers pretty much going to get themselves their times coming through now. Tim Holgate then, the guy who came so close to winning a championship, he gets beaten for the moment by Christopher Demeritt. But all of these guys, they've got 2 laps, and it's a case of now push it to the absolute limit. Let's go on board with Tim Holgate down into turn 3 and 4. What can he do? Second time around, it will be Tim Holgate, and he is not going to be able to go faster. So Tim Holgate not going to be able to get pole position here. Let's go back and have a look at some of the other drivers right now. There you can see Tony Hellerman and a couple of people are waiting here in qualifying to see what other guys do, Aaron, before they head out on track themselves.
Yeah, that can be an advantage to, you have some people that want to go out, put the bar down, and put pressure on the other drivers, but for other drivers, well, if you know exactly what you have to run and you know your car's capable of it, some drivers can get that just extra bit of focus when they know, hey, all I need to do is do a 4.3, a 25.43. I can do that. And you wait to see what to do. So a little bit of gamesmanship here with about just over or just under 3 minutes to go in this session.
Well, this is the driver who won the 16th Street Racing League Indy 500. It is Joe Brandt in the iAdvance Motorsports machine, and he goes up into P6 for lap number 1. Let's have a look at the speed chart for him then. Just staying above 200 miles an hour, dips down to 199 through the center of turn number 1 and 2. You can see how much speed these guys are losing in the corners with that crosswind, looking a little bit slower through turn number 3 and 4, pushing way up high there for Joe Brandt. So that is not going to be an improvement on his second lap. He will cross the start finish time, and he is going to go, well, he was almost 2 tenths slower that second lap, and that is going to be the talking point of the day. The guys that push up on the racetrack.
These setups will seem to be, well, what we're going to have to watch out for, you can start with a push condition, but you're going to put more and more wheel input, and Homestead is known for this as you come through 3 into 4. The banking there just, it doesn't come off like turn 2. Turn 2 is much easier here than turn 4. You put more and more and more wheel input, and eventually the wheels grab, and what started out as a push condition can turn into a snap oversteer condition, just like that.
Yep, there we can see then Richard Holiday, number 10 HMB Motorsports car, currently down in P number 16. As we still got a couple of people then to go out. Big names still need to go out. Tim Doyle and Niles Anders. Got Richard Haskins there coming onto track in that number 62 car. Going to try and do himself an in-lap by the looks of it. Looks as though just trying to potentially look at the pit entry here. Pit entry we'll talk about. It's probably the hardest pit entry of any oval, probably outside of Milwaukee, in my opinion.
Yeah, if we do get to green flag pit stops, you can win or lose. You can be 5 seconds behind, and a lot of pit entries, you can't really gain time, you can only lose it. Here, depending on how aggressive you want to be, you can gain a quarter lap on another driver because it is completely flat, and these setups do not like a flat. When they're made for the banking, they do not like the flatness, and very easy to push wide. And one thing, if you do push wide and go back onto the racetrack, that's going to be a pit violation, and going to be an extra 15 seconds or maybe even a pass through depending on whether it was on entry or exit.
Yeah, pit entry, pit exit is very, very difficult here for some of these drivers. Robert Gortz is on track right now, number 5 machine. Got to get himself round the track. He's not going to do so in time to complete his lap. So what we can do, ladies and gentlemen, is we can run you through your starting grid for this round number 1 of the iAdvance Indy Elite Series. Time has expired, so here we are then. Let's have ourselves a look at your starting grid. Well, there you can see Christopher Demerit then will be bringing the field to the green flag for the first round of the championship. Tim Holgate alongside him on that front row. Then you got yourself Intense Sim Racing's Bradley Walters in third, Joe Flanagan on the outside of row number 2. We'll cycle it on back, and there you can see Jim McClure and Donald Strout. They are the third row of the grid. Then you got yourself Joe Branch and Jonathan Goke on the fourth row. Row number 5, Tony Haldeman and Tim Doyle. We're going to cycle that grid back through you here. Pretty big field, as always, to kick off a new season, Aaron.
It always seems everybody comes out for the first race. Everybody right now has a shot, equal shot at the championship. Points are tied, so all these drivers are hoping to get a good start. And traditionally here, Will, the drivers we see at Homestead up front early in the race aren't usually the ones that win. Two of the more memorable races we've done together, Nefri Og winning here is along with Courtney Terrell. Both of them in those races we didn't talk about in the first half of the race, but they came on strong in the end. Homestead has just that magical touch to it that makes races rather memorable, and we'll have to see if through strategy some of the drivers that are starting mid-pack, such as Jonathan Goke, Tim Doyle, Michael Peters, all of them can win a race, not starting up front, but over the course of the race with a little bit of changes, and this wind I think is going to create a factor. So lots of storylines, and we'll have to see if Demerit and Holgate come out of the gate strong.
Indeed. So, based in Indianapolis, iAdvanced Motorsports is one of the top simulator training facilities in all of motorsports. Built by IndyCar driver Darren Manning, the iAdvanced simulator features a 20-foot long and 8-foot tall screen that wraps 180 degrees around an actual Indy Lights tub. iAdvanced uses the latest hardware and software to be as close to the real thing as possible, along with the best pedal assembly, steering wheel, and force feedback money can buy, making it the perfect tool to effectively and accurately train race car drivers and sim racers alike. Visit iAdvancedMotorsports.com to sign up today. So here we are then, cars heading themselves on to the one and only pace lap, and then we're going to get ourselves ready for some fantastic action here on RaceSpot TV Primetime, here on RaceSpot TV, streaming live on iRacing Live. It's not the white flag, it is the pace lap there, so there we are. Working ourselves on that pace lap right now. Of course, let's take you towards the front of the field, and let's show you the driver of Christopher. No, he's not going to take the starting field here. So we'll talk about that one as the race will develop, but here is the front part of your grid. They're working themselves now through turn number 3 and 4. We're about to get a new season of racing underway here then on RaceSpot TV, and it's going to be fantastic. From the very start, green flag in hand, we are racing for the first round of the season. Cars coming down in towards one for the first time, and it's going to be a case of, are they all going to make it through these opening laps? Of course, this is the most dangerous part of the race, but it looks as though all your field is through turn number 1 and 2 on lap number 1, Aaron.
And Bradley Walters does take the lead, and for a lot of these drivers that did solo car runs, this is their first time to really get into massive turbulence, as we are going to go 3 wide for about 4th, 5th, 6th. You can go 3 wide on the straightaways, maybe in the corner. Not the best way to guarantee that you're going to finish this race, but right now, as the tires are fresh, you have to really jockey for position hard, and they are doing that mid-pack as we got 2 wide racing all throughout the field. Yeah, we're going to talk quite heavily in this race about the inside, the outside lines, but you see, the guys are really using all parts of the racetrack. We're on board then with Tim Doyle in the Voigtwine Ludicrous Speed number 11 car, holding the inside line into turn number 1, but notice that number 35 car, Tony Hellerman, was able to hold that outside line without any issue at all. So now they work themselves down the back straight away in towards turn number 3 and 4 again. But that outside line at the start of these runs is going to be really critical. That inside line will only rubber in if people use it. It'll be interesting to see if we end up with a 1 groove or 2 groove racetrack here this evening, Aaron. Yes, and one reason why we're seeing cars scattered right now is for clean air, you have to run where they're not. Same thing with passing. You can run in somebody's tires tracks, but there's no way you're going to pass them. So you have to go where they aren't. So you're going to see drivers as they're following a car, they may take a little bit earlier turn in to try to get some of that fresh air onto the wing. As I think we have Jonathan Goke trying to make a pass on Donald Stroud. And well, watch us outside. That outside, you get such momentum, and that is with the progressive banking here. Another thing, well, tires do fall off, and if you're running the inside, you can really cook that right front because it's having to work a lot harder than if you're using the banking on the outside.
Yeah, it's 18 degrees of banking at the bottom of this racetrack. It is 20 degrees of banking up top, and that is one thing that these guys are going to really have to pay attention to. Having a look down your pack, Tim Doyle versus Tony Hellerman, that one is still going on. Down even further, we've got ourselves some nice little battles starting to shape up on track right now. Live timing and scoring will be available in a couple of moments time, ladies and gentlemen. We'll go back on board then with Tim Doyle in that number 11 machine. There's Tony Hellerman alongside him. Of course, you got yourself now. John Goke moved himself to the outside, and that was mighty, mighty close there. Almost had our first caution of the day.
Oh, Jonathan Goke really, I think he's still in NASCAR at Daytona mode using the side draft, which you can use. Goke used that to his advantage there, using the side draft to really pull himself forward, and that battle was about 5 laps in the making to finally get around him. So that shows you can make passes, but you have to be really willing to push the limit. And well, look at the distance, about 15 car lengths already, and Strout now gonna, Tony Hellerman gonna try the outside as well. So, well, that inside, you may be able to hold off, but I don't know where you're gonna go. Tim Doyle now tries to make a move on the inside. He's gonna make one, and is he gonna get the 2-for-1 special here?
Yeah, on board then with Hellerman. You can see Tim Doyle forcing himself down to the inside, but that car is not able to really hold the bottom as much. And it's almost as if we're talking about Darlington here. The closer you are to the wall, the better your race car's going to handle. But Hellerman, now we're on board with him. That is a perfect example. Look at how much that number 35 car gained in the center on the exit of the corner. Moves himself side by side with Tim Doyle. Will force him down to the inside and towards turn number 1 and 2. And, well, Doyle can drive it into the corner, but loses it in the, basically after the first third of that corner itself.
And it can be very annoying for the driver on the inside. If you know your car is faster, that is one of the more aggravating things as a driver, to know you're faster and be really unable to make the pass. This is where, as a driver, you have to have restraint. It's 150 laps. There's no reason to wad your car up into the wall right now. But when you know you're faster, as Tim Doyle, he has many, many big race wins under his belt. He's got the control, running 9th right now, and this is a long race. There are going to be pit stops, so really no reason to try to make something that isn't there happen.
Yeah, we just showed you that. Bradley Walters with almost a 1-second advantage over Tim Holgate, pulling away right now. In fact, Tim Holgate himself now the 1.6 second advantage over Jim McClure in the number 09 Snake Pit racing car. Now, these drivers love this right now because they are running in clean air. They're not having to deal with that horrible push. Their tyres are going to last well into this first stint. And actually, we've got a car just falling down timing and scoring a little bit. Austin Espati, 777 machine, side by side. Michael Peters for P14.
And Austin Espati last year, or in 16th Street, I was really expecting a better qualifying performance out of him. So a little mired back in the pack right now, but expect him to come through the field this race. Might have to do some strategy, go off sequence maybe. We'll see that if we get that early yellow, if we do get that split strategy. But right now, well, it's been pretty much everybody's been behaving themselves rather nicely, although hopefully the commentator's curse doesn't happen.
Oh, we always say that. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, live timing and scoring is available. Head over to racebot.tv/timing if you'd like to make use of that one over the course of this event. Let's cycle through then your top 8 on track right now. We'll get that graphic up along the bottom of your screen. And, well, what you can see here, Aaron, is that the gaps from P1 to P4, they're rather nice. Then your first big pack comes around P5, 6, 7, 8. But it has started to settle down a little bit. Robert Gort's got Manifold going side by side, but they're all the way down in P17 right now.
And one thing that you're going to see, the tires right now really don't like the dirty air, but as this run progresses, the tires are going to get really greasy. Track temperature here today, right now, 116 degrees, so this track is going to get rather greasy. So eventually, the aero push is going to turn into these cars getting very, very slippery on the racetrack. And that's when a better handling car is really going to come through the field. So right now, maybe a little settled down, but as these tires start to really wear, the positions are really going to start changing at a very quick click.
Yeah, have a look on board there with TJ Mazik able to go around the outside of the car of Michael Peters through turn number 1 and 2 as they work themselves now on the exit of 4 down towards the start-finish line once again. So far in this event, we have had ourselves a nice clean start to this event. Still got a little bit of racing going on. We're going to go actually on board with the number 20 machine of Pete Cozzanzo. They're in the Ricmotech car. Of course, Ricmotech are the sponsors of the iAdvance Indy Elite Series Triple Crown. We'll talk more about that one in a couple of moments' time. But the number 20 machine up into P21.
And whereas leaders are just out for a Sunday evening drive right now, back in the pack, this is where really you are fighting a lot harder than the leaders. You have a lot more turbulent air. You have more cars around you. So this isn't the battle for the lead, but in all reality right now, this is a much more intense position to be in than in the top 5.
First piece of traffic going to come into play. First real piece of traffic is going to come into play. And actually that is Stefan Wilson in the number 15 machine. Not having himself a good day. 20 laps into this event. He is actually running at the iAdvance Motorsports facility in Indianapolis this evening for this event. But Stefan Wilson in that number 15 car is going to be caught by Bradley Walters very quickly, and it's actually going to be interesting to note, in fact it is interesting to note, that Tim Holgate is caught right up to the rear of Walters. That car, Walters, not working well in the traffic, and guess what that means, Aaron?
That means Holgate, Holgate is one of the best strategists in the race. He doesn't push himself. He goes to the inside, and I think this is going to be an easy pass here. Bradley Walters is probably going to lift. No, he's not. We are going to go side by side, but Stefan Wilson actually missed the start of the race, started from the pits, and that car has plenty of speed as he really hasn't been caught as fast as I thought he would. So if he can get a yellow, I think we'll see Stefan Wilson come up through this field. So he isn't back there on pace alone. Missed the start from pit lane, but behind him side by side for the lead, and that shows you that time Holgate did lead that lap, but only just many times. Thinking back a decade, Will, Weldon and Halio had a photo finish here.
Yep, and it was 1/1000th of a second at the line that last time by between these two drivers. They are running fantastically. Walters starts grazing the wall. That's like Will Power in 2010.
Oh, exact same spot. And I was, before I talked about Stefan Wilson, I wanted to mention that Walters, every lap getting closer and closer to that wall in turn 4. And if you can hit it square, you can get away with it. But if you hit it at any slight angle, you can bend the tie rod or move some of the wing plates, the side pod. And if that happens, you're not going to be competitive the rest of the race. And Bradley Walters here needs to take a breath, let Holgate take the lead, get your bearings back. Don't make another mistake.
All right, let's listen in now. We've got the replay up. This is Bradley Walters into turn 3 and 4. Let's listen in. Yeah, he hit it side on, but that was exactly the same point that Will Power had his infamous crash down in turn number 3 and 4, lap 134 of the 2010 Cafe de Brazil Indy 300. But, well, they carry on, and that was a lucky miss there for Bradley Walters, but it has dropped him now down into second place. Got still a bit of scrapping going on. 26 of 150 laps, scored complete already. TJ Mazik there, scrapping out. Paul Jennings for P12 and 13.
And the battles back here have not calmed down. at all. And this is the point of the race where the tires, as Massic's gonna go to the inside, gonna have to lift in. Where we saw Walters have the issue, that's exactly where the winds are going to shift. So that may have also pushed that car to the outside as you go from that headwind as it transitions to a tailwind there. And Massick still on the inside. Oh, don't push up. Oh, so close between Massick and Jennings, as Jennings going to maintain the 12th spot for now.
Yep, so they stay pretty much nose to tail, so work themselves through turn 3 and 4 once again. Down in the pack, still got himself a bit more scrapping going on. Look at how close these drivers are. Let's ride from the rear of Richard Haskins, because these guys... Oh, trouble on the racetrack as we're on board of Haskin. Hard into the wall there. Do we get the first caution of the day? That car is just off the racing surface. But oh my word, Richard Haskins turned around there, and that will possibly bring out the caution now. Haskins bringing that car back onto track, but he's going very, very slowly. And Aaron, he's going to have to hope he doesn't spin in front of any other cars as he tries to pull it off.
Yeah, and that car now comes to rest. He is well off the groove, so he has gotten that car off the track. So we are going to stay green. So a lot of drivers that were hoping for that yellow, well, they're out of luck.
Yeah, there's a replay there, and this is Haskins off of corner number 4, and you can see it's with that number 20 car as we were on board there with Richard Haskins, and you can see those tyres are damaged to the right side pod, that Motegi racing car, scraping along the inside wall, and of course there's not a safer barrier always on the inside there, but Richard Haskins' race is pretty much going to be done for the day. He's on pit road, it's all over for him. Jim McClure has just been passed by Joe Flanagan. Flanagan now in that ludicrous speed car up into P number 3, Aaron.
And he is on the move. Been a good race so far for him, and inside top 3 now. And between Flanagan, McClure, Goke, all 3 of those drivers, as Tony Helmanen gonna pit from P6 on lap 31.
Wow, that's early. So number 35 car coming on towards pit road. He evidently feels as if he's not got enough in those tyres. And we know that these cars can do 55-ish laps on a tank of fuel, but it's an early drive on towards pit road here. And let's have a look. Get the speed chart up. 45, 50 miles an hour as he heads himself on towards pit road.
Oh, the yellow comes out.
Oh my word. So first caution of the day. And who is involved in that one, Aaron? SPT?
We've got Pete Costanzo. He may be the one. Car number 20 gets loose as at the same time. So 2 separate incidents. Espity did spin coming into the pits. Luckily, the wall's been moved. Was that... I'm trying to think about 11 or 12 years ago who hit the sand barrels coming into the pits here at Homestead. But Espity spins to the inside. Costanzo... he also spins, so I think it was Costanzo that actually triggered the yellow, but 2 separate spins at the same part of the racetrack.
Yep, so we're under caution for the first time here today, and that means pit road is going to be a very, very busy place right about now. Look at that, Tim Holgate bringing the field into pit lane. All of them going to come in then, Aaron, and this is going to be a wild one, of course. Getting yourself a good pit stop could well make it easier for you on the race restart.
Indeed it can, and right now still showing Tony Helmanen on the lead lap, so if he could get in and out and make his pit stop, he may, and nope, he's going to be tail end of the lead lap. But for Holgate and Walters, this is going to be the battle, and if Walters has any damage at all, that may extend his pit stop a little bit. So let's see who can get the run out, and I believe it's going to be Holgate.
Holgate, then Walters, your top 2 drivers going to do well. And Jonathan Goke's going to move himself up a position, and almost there. 2 positions going to be lost for Flanagan. It's a bad pit stop also for Jim McClure, actually. He's the biggest loser out of your top 10, all the way down to P8 in line, Aaron.
I have to wonder, we did have a couple drivers coming into the pits there, so I wonder if maybe McClure did a full fuel load, and other drivers knowing that maybe you're only going to see 30 laps, because yes, you can go farther, but just before we went yellow, I was looking at Tony's lap times, and they dropped off almost a second from his best, so if these drivers are thinking shorter runs, maybe McClure filled all the way up, and other people maybe short-filled.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to step aside whilst we have a moment at your Racebot TV side by side. We'll be back with more after this.
Simulated racing can be awesome, but it can also be kind of a free-for-all. Interestingly, auto racing faced the same problem in its earlier days. Whether it was on the back roads, the beaches, or the city streets, the racing was fun. But there was always a certain level of chaos and danger, until some folks came along and put some order to all of this. Stuff like official racetracks, regulations about weight and equipment, and enforcement of standards. That's what gave us high-speed excitement, fast-paced action, and photo finishes. That's when racing became racing. The guys over at iRacing.com have made the same transformation in the world of sim racing. Sure, they've got the most accurate tracks and realistic cars out there, but that's just the start. See, iRacing analyzes the performance and results of each driver in every race, so you can be sure you're always placed in races where the competition will be tight, and that those reckless drivers who ruin it for us all are kept in the pits. Not to mention that with over 45,000 active members already in their vast community, you can find races day and night, so you can always get in on the action. You can even join a league of your favorite series. And since updates are always automatic, you don't have to worry about software and can focus on the track. Zip up your fire suit and check out iRacing.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna have that pace car pull itself on towards pit road. First caution of the day, gonna be scored complete. 36 at 150 laps then. Done here. First round of the championship. Green flag back in the air. Good restart there by Tim Holgate. He's going to put a bit of a jump over the field, but we always know that saying, Aaron. Cautions breed cautions. Are we going to be okay as we restart this one?
And in the back of the pack, we will have Tony Halmanen, who got the wave around. So trying to go off sequence, maybe pit a little bit earlier, didn't work. But already he's picked off 5 cars just in 2 turns. So he's going to be on the move, and that's the thing that can cause yellows. People that had a bad pit stop that were up higher, well, they're going to be in a hurry to get back to where they were. Also, everybody now knows what their car can do, and they know that these first 5-10 laps very important to get as much as you can while you still have optimum grip, as we do have a battle for P6, as it looks like Doyle's going to lose a position to Marco Brazil off of 4.
812 machine there. Vortex Sim Racing driver. They're going to go side by side again in towards turn number 1. You'll just see that left quarter panel. Did I just say quarter? I actually said quarter panel. Left rear of that machine, Vortex Sim Racing car, of Marco Brazil, but he is going to stay ahead of Tim Doyle. And it's interesting to note that, of course, through that first sequence of runs, these guys would have been using those in-car tools, Aaron, to try and figure out the balance on this ever-changing racetrack.
And the balance now will not be the balance in 10 laps, will not be the balance in 20 laps. You have to stay ahead of the car with the adjustments. And they've had one real test run of about 35 laps, so now you can sort of make mental notes of where you're going to have to be when. Other tricky thing is, if you're following a car, you're going to have the dirty air. The car's going to push a little bit more. Where if you make that pass, you're going to have to dial it back, or the car, or what you've made to be a loose setup, all of a sudden you have clean air, and it's going to be really much pronounced, and you can lose the rear end rather quickly.
Donald Strout there, you saw as we were working on board of him, just almost touch the side of Robert Gortz's car, and that allows Nathan Bookbinder to come down to the inside almost again. The two running into each other as they work themselves down to complete lap number 41 here. Well, it's been a crazy start to this event. Only one caution so far, only one lead change so far, but plenty of other racing taking place. And of course, we've got ourselves some of these guys working themselves through some traffic because of pit stops, bad pit stops, and also, Aaron, because single file restarts means that lap down cars will start in line.
Yes, they will, and we did have a few of those that were hopefully going to get the wave around. They did not, because they were behind the leader on their restart. So having those intermingled throughout the field really can make things interesting. And for Donald Strout right now, had a great qualifying effort, qualified 6th, but right now trying to defend for the 13th spot. And so he's been one of our biggest movers backwards, and I just have to think you can be very fast in qualifying, but if you don't have the balance for the turbulence, you're going to find yourself going backwards in a hurry.
Indeed, so going to ride ourselves on board then with John Goke. Of course, he was your biggest mover through pit stops running himself in P3 right now. And let's see, we're getting ourselves closer to 1/3 distance in this race zone. It looks as though that Goat's got a good race car beneath him in that 0-8 car, but he just can't run closely in the draft the same way that Holgate and Walters are running within about 1/3 of a second of each other.
And the positions Goat got on that first run, he's one of the more fearless drivers out there. He will give you everything but an inch. So when you're running side by side, you have to know when you open the door just a little bit, he is going to take it. And that's why he's been one of our movers up through the field, 8th to 3rd, biggest mover inside the top 5. And once you get to Bradley Walters, I think Goat's car might be one of the fastest cars on the racetrack in terms of being able to maintain that dirty air. Walters still washing out in turn 4. Goat's car really doesn't seem to be affected by the dirty air as the cars around him are.
Yeah, having a look then, just down in your pack, we've got ourselves 5 drivers scored laps down right now. We've got Pete Cozzano out the race as it stands. Randy Freeman scored a couple laps down. Andrew Kinsella, Austin Espartito actually going side by side. From P25, P26, even though they're 2 laps down.
And that just shows, even though you are 2 laps down, well, every position matters. And when it is a battle for position, well, you got to take it while you can. This is a season-long thing that does have some pretty nice rewards at the end. So, you may think, well, 2 laps down, what are you battling for? But going back to the 16th Street season last year, Will, one position earlier in the season may make a completely different strategy at the end and may have had a different champion. So every position when you're running for a championship matters.
Yep, Stefan Wilson's been able to get himself back onto the lead lap. Well, he wasn't the lead lap. He's been able to, of course, now have caught up with the pacing line. He was going side by side there. Battle for position through turn number 1 and 2. But, of course, ladies and gentlemen, we have got the title sponsor of the Treble Crown. Based in Indianapolis, iAdvance Motorsports is one of the top simulator training facilities in all of motorsports. Built by IndyCar driver Darren. Caution, caution, caution.
Big crash. Stefan Wilson along with about 4 other cars. This happened going into turn 3. Jose Crescente tried to make a move on the inside, and just the slightest of contacts in Indy cars, Will, is a little bit too much. So multiple cars get caught up in turns 3 and 4.
Yep, we're not going to get ourselves a good replay, I don't think, of this one, but we're going to try and see what we can find. Here we are then, down in towards turn number 3 and 4. Second caution of the day at 1/3 distance, and well, there we are. Big impact there. I've got a couple of drivers involved in that one. But as I was saying, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. Based in Indianapolis, iAdvance Motorsports is one of the top simulator training facilities in all of motorsports. Built by IndyCar driver Darren Manning, the iAdvance simulator features a 20-foot long and 8-foot tall screen that wraps 180 degrees around an actual Indy Lights tub. iAdvance uses the latest hardware and software to be as close to the real thing as possible, along with the best pedal assembly, steering wheel, and force feedback money can buy, making it the perfect tool to effectively and accurately train race car drivers and sim racers alike. Visit iAdvanceMotorsports.com to sign up today. Yeah, and of course, iAdvance Motorsports are the official partners of this series. We'll talk about Rick Motec in a couple of moments' time as well, because we've got ourselves a couple of people staying out this time, and it's a crazy, crazy run out of pit road, but the winner is going to be Tim Holgate out of that one. Michael Peters stays out on track, and as a consequence, he is going to inherit the race lead here today. So Michael Peters becomes another leader in this event, and then of course we've got ourselves all the guys that pitted. But it's interesting to note that of course some guys are going to be potentially pinned a lap down as a consequence, and that is why they're coming on towards pit road. Andrew Kinsella is one of those, as is Andreas Elk, heading themselves down onto pit road. Talked about iAdvance Motorsports, now let's talk about Rick Motec. Ladies and gentlemen, Rick Motec are proud to sponsor the iAdvance Motorsports Indy Elite Series Triple Crown. Ricmotech pride themselves on producing high-performance sim racing equipment. Their Real Gear line brings unbelievable realism to the sim racing experience by utilizing real motorsports equipment modified for sim racing. Just like their products, their customer service is held to the same high standard. As a thank you to the sim racing community, Ricmotech is offering $20 off any order of $100 or more. Simply head to ricmotech.com and at the completion of your order, use priority code ELITE. That's priority code ELITE. Having a look then on board with the Fast Daddy racing car of Paul Jennings, so you can see promo code at the top of your screen. If you would like to make use of that, feel free to do so. Michael Peters then will bring the field back to Green Flag Racing here. Bit of a difficult one here for Peters because, of course, wheel spin could well be a big factor on this restart, Aaron.
And one thing, I've done a lot of testing this week, Will, and one thing, we did do 20 laps, so that's right on the cusp of, I'm really questioning this call, but clean air means a lot. It means an absolute ton, but that's only if your tires are in good enough shape to hold those off behind you. So if we get about a 20 lap, 30, maybe 20, 25, 30 lap run, and Michael Peters is still inside the top 10, it was a great call. But sometimes if you want to win one of these things, you got to take a gamble, and Peters right now, I would definitely call this a gamble, but you got to watch for wheel spin, and you got to watch for, if you're half a second slower, you really have to do the best you can to stay out of the way, because the cars behind you are going to be coming at a very fast clip.
Well, we've got ourselves then going to be 54 laps scored complete at the conclusion of this caution there. You can see the top 8 along the bottom of your screen. We expect pretty much all of these guys to be up there fighting in the mix. So, of course, there might well be a surprise or two in the next 15 laps or so. How to keep an eye out then on Michael Peters. How will that car work when we have ourselves worn tyres? We'll find out over the course of probably the next 30 seconds here. So let's have a look from the rear of that number 3 Intent Sim Racing car of Michael Peters as he brings the field back to Green Flag Racing here. Caution number 2 is going to be over, and we talked about the wheel spin. There was the wheel spin on restart, and Tim Holgate almost ran clean into the back of Michael Peters.
And the person who could definitely capitalize on it right now is Bradley Walters. If he can use Peters as a pick, not going to be able to do so, or is he going to force this 3 wide down the back straightaway? He'd be coming from a long ways back, not going to be able to, but Holgate and Walters through, so Peters quickly back to 3rd.
Well, there's that clean air argument gone out the window already.
Yeah, and here comes Goat to the inside. He's going to take 3rd and going to think about 2nd. Walters drifts up a little bit. Let's see if he can use the momentum or if Goat's going to be there. They are going to be side by side down the back straightaway. Walters may have him cleared.
Yep. Looking into turn 3 and 4. Here they come then. But Goat falls back into line for the moment. We've got Enrique Ebo completely trashed that car on pit road now. Andrew Kinsella still working back through the field. Currently scored us 2 laps down. I do like the fact that most of the guys got pinned a lap down. They did come onto pit road to get fuel and tyres, because that will prove useful to them later on in this event, Aaron.
They could have stayed out. They would have had to have got their lap back the hard way, but having Holgate, Walters with fresh tires, that probably wouldn't really help them. So without getting the wave around, come in, hope you get a yellow 15 laps and maybe get your lap. But if they would have stayed out and we go green another 30 laps, they're going to have to pit under green. And those 2 laps could easily turn into 4 or 5 laps.
Yeah, just having a look, Michael Peters now down into P number 8 already. That is worn tyres versus new tyres at this track with these track conditions. Down in your field a little bit. Now let's have a look at TJ Mazik down in P number 9, trying to work himself back up through this field a little bit, up 14 places from where he qualified earlier on in today though.
Incredible run, Will. Just incredible. He's our next car to try to pass Michael Peters, but the longer Michael Peters can stay forward as these laps tick off, it's going to be more and more difficult for the cars behind him, as it looks like McClure is going to try to go to the inside of Masick. Not going to work that time, but McClure, he was running inside our top 5 earlier, now running 10th. That one pit stop really has set him back, as Masick's going to go to the inside of Peters and move him up to 8th momentarily. Let's see if that outside with worn tires, just how well it works.
Yep, here we are. And of course, now the interesting thing to note is that the sheen has gone off of these new tyres, and that means that you're not going to get the same performance advantage on that inside line as you would have done as soon after that restart. But inside line working well then. And of course, Aaron, now we've got to start thinking about things like the track marbles coming up on track as we go on board with Scott Manifold down in P number 14 in the winning race team car. And those marbles is going to start coating the 3rd and 4th lane. And we've seen guys running all the way up the racetrack here already today. And if they push up into the grey, well, they're going to be in serious trouble.
Yes, that's one thing these drivers do have to take into consideration, but at the same time, if everybody's running on the same part of the track, it will rubber in, but it can also get very greasy. So really, the drivers are really pushing the marbles. Everybody's running so high, they have nowhere to go except down the banking. So it's very rare that you can say that the inside line is going to be the gray area, so to speak. But as high as we're seeing these drivers run, those marbles are getting brushed off rather quickly.
Jim McClure, Snake Pit Racing car up into P number 9. Of course, he had that miserable first pit stop there. Second stop, much better for Jim McClure, actually. But, well, that shows you just how important pits under caution are, because McClure was running P3 at one point in this race. He's now down into P number 9.
And when you know you have a podium...
Oh, sorry, trouble on the racetrack. And we've got a car up high into the wall. That is going to be Donald Strout there. And that was through turn number 1 and 2. That was a contact point there with, I believe, Paul Jennings. We do stay green for the moment, but Aaron could have been our 3rd caution of the day.
And Strout, he just, as we have major incidents in the back. We now have a yellow as
Tony Holloman.
Tony, yes, it is.
Well, let's start by having a look first at this replay. We'll go back to Tony Holloman in just one moment's time. But, well, it's just like they say, cautions breed cautions. You see one incident, you check up, it bunches the group of drivers together, and then Aaron, at this high speed, it's sometimes difficult to react to incidents happening around you.
Yeah, with the Strout incident, that's side by side into turn 1, 2 drivers into the same real estate, and actually an amazing save by Donald Strout, who qualified 6th, and he's had a most miserable race so far. And I wonder if that incident actually played prelude to the next incident. And well, I do think it did, as Jennings contact with 2 cars in the same lap.
Well, good thing about Homestead is we know in advance that everyone's coming on towards pit road, because they still have to use that inside line. 66 out of 150 scored complete. Getting close to nudging halfway here. But these guys are going to come on towards pit road again. We're going to get anyone try and think about coming to stay out. Yes, Marco Brazil will stay out this time. But obviously, he didn't get the memo to see what happened to Michael Peters a couple of laps ago.
Oh, this run wasn't as long as the first run, so maybe he's thinking this race may have a yellow feel to it, and if we get another 15-lap run, well, it seems every yellow, these drivers are coming onto pit lane, so if you can stay out there, we saw Michael Peters really cut the bleeding, so to speak, after about the first 6 laps, so if Marco can stay out there, very quick driver, he may be able to make the strategy work, but if it doesn't work this time, Will, next driver that tries it, well, definitely you're going to want to tell their crew chief, what are you thinking?
Joe Flanagan down the end, and TJ Masick there. 3 wide coming out of pit road. Tim Holgate wins the race off of pit road. Going to step aside for a moment. We'll be back with more after this. You're watching RaceSpot TV, prime time on iRacing Live.
Nick Tandy, what a move. Truex on the outside, contact made. 56 slides it at a 4. Who's going to be at the stripe? Dead even, give it to Ryan Truex. Truex is your winner over Tandy.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget, if you are a fan of the World Championship Series, then we've got it here on Racebot TV all season long. We've got ourselves an NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series powered by iRacing.com. They head themselves to Atlanta this coming Tuesday. Then the second round of the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series will be from Phillip Island on Saturday. And of course, we've got ourselves a Blancpain GT World Endurance Championship starting in April. And that is right here, only on iRacing Live. Aaron, this restart, I think, is going to be fun.
Yes, it is. And you talked about lap car being intermingled. We have Andrew Kinsella, who is 2 laps down, but he has Marco Brazil in front of him, and if he can get around him, he's going to only be 1 lap down. But behind him is Holgate, who's going to want around both of them. For Bradley Walters, starting third, this is his best chance to take the lead. He's going to have to figure out how to use the air to try to get around Holgate, but we'll see if Marco's strategy works here as the pace car is about to make that left-hand turn.
Yeah, off the pit road then comes the pace car. Off the racetrack even comes the pace car. Here comes Marco Brazil then. Green flag back in the air. Much better restart by the Vortex Sim Racing driver. Kinsella has held the pack up though just a little bit, as they can see him in that number 14 car. Holgate wasn't able to get past before turn number 1.
And this is exactly what Marco Brazil needs. He needs as many laps as he can to let the drivers with fresh tires really lose that real advantage. Holgate going to have to work really hard, as behind him, Jonathan Goetz going to move into the 3rd spot. So really, I'd say that's almost going to be 2nd spot, but we'll have to see how Marco's tires work. If Holgate has to spend too much time trying to get around him, well, Marco may have the right strategy. Only time will tell.
Yeah, and it did take about a lap and a half there. And now it's going to be very interesting to see how these guys work around that traffic of Kinsella. Of course, Kinsella's perfectly entitled to be in that position where he is. But look at the free wide, almost scraping the wall once again. Is Bradley Walters. That'll be the 2nd time today in almost the identical spot. But Walters getting racy here with 72 of 150 scored complete this time by.
That car just doesn't seem to be working there, which, I know, call me a Captain Obvious there, but Walter's car much stronger through 1 and 2, and I don't know if it's the wind catching him out, but lap after lap, as Joe Branch is going to look to the outside of Bradley Walters in 3 and 4, I think that's the last place I'd want to put my car, knowing what Walter's car has been doing there. Branch to the inside. This is the battle for 4th.
Yep, here comes Joe Branch, and of course the winner of the 2016 16th Street Racing League Indy 500 down in towards 3 and 4. They will come once again, and well, Branch having himself a good day here. Down your pack, still some great racing going on. Tim Doyle, who would have thought Tim Doyle would be P17 as we get close to halfway in this event, but that is where Tim Doyle is right now. He is struggling strategy-wise just a little bit in this event, and well, Tim Doyle got a lot of work to do in the second half of this event.
Yes, I believe Doyle may, he got too many boxes, says Race Control will, so went through too many boxes. Oh, so close out of turn 4 for, let's see, was that, oh, that was Strout and Doyle going so close through 3 and 4 will. That's one thing, when you have a car on the inside, you have to know, especially what we've seen with the wind, that they are going to push up. Very heads up by Doyle, knowing that that car was going to come up, and he gave him all the room that he needed, but again, not an inch more. If he gave another inch more, Doyle himself would have been in that outside wall.
New race leader Tim Holgate breezing past then Marco Brazil through turn number 1. They will come again. Now we need to know what the tire is going to be like. For Brazil, losing the race lead isn't going to be the end of the world, but back down to the inside will go the Vortex Racing 812 car. This guy is brave right now, but he's going to drift up on corner exit. That's going to allow Holgate, the inside line again, past the stripe they come. Brazil, well, that was almost a dead heat there. 24 one-thousandths of a second. Brazil led lap that.
And now is he going to get the run? He's going to get the toe back to the inside. So the crossover definitely in play here. And make a note for later, 15 laps. He's going to push up.
Oh!
Did he brush it?
No, he just missed it there. At the line that time by Holgate did lead the lap by 15 one-thousandths of a second. But that was very, very close there by Marco Brazil in that number 812 car.
Holgate going to use a little bit lower line. He's not going to want to play this crossover game too much longer because this is allowing Jonathan Gope to come into the picture as Brazil's car now really starting to push off a turn 4. That's going to allow Gope to get the draft. Look to the inside in 1, and they're going to, well, look at the 2 different lanes being used, Will.
Yeah, that inside line, now it's more rubbered in. There's more grip on that inside line. Yes, it's parabolic banking, so yes, there's more banking on the outside lane compared to the inside, but that rubber going down on that inside line has allowed it to become grippier. And if you head yourself into the grey, well, we saw what happened with Brazil. He almost ended up tagging the one. In fact, Bradley Walters has almost done it twice in today's event here. And again, Brazil running the ultra high line. It's a case of running high in, trying to stay on that outside line. I call it the Darlington line, but Brazil, he's basically trying to turn that car as little as possible. Let the banking do its job so that basically he keeps his tires going as long as he can.
And if we do get a yellow within the next 5 laps, well, Marco Aurelio Brazil's strategy is going to certainly pay dividends because we've seen these drivers want fresh tires every chance they get. And that's the thing, the previous stint that we had, I think, was short enough, whereas when Peters tried it, it was just about 10 laps too long. But we get a yellow here, Will. I think we're going to see half and half. I think more drivers are going to take that gamble.
Yep, as of course, the later you get into a race, the more risky you sometimes think that you have to be. Jim McClure scrapping out with TJ Mazik. This was a P number 7 on track right now. Of course, McClure, we talked earlier, had that very slow first pit stop in that Grateful Dead car, but now up behind Mazik as they work themselves through 3 and 4 onto the front straightaway once again to complete 82 of 150.
McClure, again, it's very aggravating when a slight mistake in the pits costs you 5 spots. We've seen just how difficult it is to gain positions. Jonathan Goke really has been the only driver to really come up through the field making passes. Very difficult. The drivers are not making it easy here. And for McClure running 8th, most drivers, he's at the latter 3rd or top 3rd of the field. But when you were running in the top 3, these laps are very aggravating as a driver, knowing where you really should be but aren't.
Nathan Bookbinder there. Really close racing with Michael Peters right now. This is for the last spot inside of the top 10. And well, it's been a crazy old day for Nathan Bookbinder. Up 12 places. We've seen him as high as almost P5. We've seen him down outside of the top 20. But that Snapple number 4 car is on fire right now.
Yes, he is. In that last lap coming out of turn 2, they actually had to avoid a very loose car, Ryan Heater, so that's going to move them up a spot. But that's one thing I said, as the run goes on, the more steering input you do, when you get off the corner, you got to watch for that looseness, as Heater caught the car and allowed Bookbinder, Peters, Doyle, and Jennings to get by him.
Well, we saw part of the impact of that, though. We saw some cars bunching together. But now that number 24 machine is down on the inside line, you've got yourself the Butu car of Richard Holiday just alongside of him, running on that outside line as it stands right now. Update on retirees. We've had a couple today in this event, but we still got ourselves 19 drivers scored on the lead lap. We've got 22 drivers circulating of the 29 that took the green flag here today. So not bad attrition for half of the first race of the season, but still some fantastic racing to boot here as we go back on board with Bookbinder, scrapping it out with Tim Doyle into 3 and 4 again.
And Doyle, one of the most crafty drivers on track. We mentioned on this restart wheel that he was running 17th all the way back to 11th. Doyle, just an absolute artist at carving his way through the field, as now up to 10th. So Doyle on the move. Behind him, Bookbinder, Jennings, Peters, using all different lines, trying to find that bit of racetrack that's going to give him that just a little bit extra speed to maybe pass the cars around him or get around Doyle. But right now, lots of different lines. But the fun thing about this track, all these different lines, and when you come out onto the straightaway, everybody's exactly where they were on entry.
Just to give you an update, Jonathan Gogues moving himself now up into P2. Marco Aurelio Brazil down into that 3rd place. So actually, the strategy call here worked better for Brazil unless these tyres fall off a cliff. We never know in the second half of a Homestead race. It could have lots of cautions, it could have no cautions, but there you can see there's timing gaps between these two drivers. And it's interesting to note, caution today, 3 of them for 10 laps overall, so about what we'd expect for Homestead.
And I believe Marco Aurelio Brazil's going to be coming into the pits, so I thought he would have been able to go further than this, but he's in the grass. Don't come up, don't come up, don't come up. Oh, so much for the strategy. We talked about the pit entry wheel being difficult, and now he's doing donuts in the grass, and they aren't the victory kind.
I know, and he's going to, of course, get himself a potential penalty to boot here. So this is not going to be Marco Brazil's finest moment. Let's get ourselves another look at that one. And this is, I have to say, it's one of the hardest pit lanes to enter. Because it is so fast. Now, it took me a long while to get used to this, and actually, getting it down isn't the point. It's actually the center of 3 and 4, because of the fact that there's not even a white line to help the car turn. You just got grass, Aaron, and you know, getting that car turned in, it's easy. You use the second palm tree as a reference point, but it's the center part of that corner on the inside where you always drift up. You just got to make sure you don't overcrank the steering wheel. We talk about the steering angle of these cars. If those tyres are shot to pieces, you're having to tippy-toe onto pit road.
Yes, and the other thing is really the inside line, because the outside has the banking. The inside is almost a decreasing radius corner in the center. So you think you've got the car slowed down. You think you can make the corner, but then when you get to that part where it really cuts, that's where we saw Marco, and with the grass, the second that right front touches it, you're just a passenger. And for Marco Brazil, when you're making a pit stop, you're used to going a lap down, but you want to try to stay on the lead lap as you come out. He was a lap down before he even got into his pit box. So for those watching, take notes. That's not how you want to do a pit entry at Homestead.
Yep. There you can see 23.9 second pit stop, 15 second pit stop penalty then for Brazil for basically a very small incident. So a strategy call that worked out well for him initially fell apart a bit by having to pit under green, and now to boot, he is 2 laps down. Paul Jennings side by side right now with Michael Peters in the battle for P number 11. Side by side they will go. The American Diabetes Association car working that outside line. The outside line's coming back into use here, Aaron.
Yes, it is. And as these tires fall off, cars are going to go up to that high line. For those running the firm inside, that right front's going to have to work more and more. And you can heat it up to the point that you're going to have to really almost coast your way through the corners.
As Donald Strauss again. Wow.
Oh, that was we're having all sorts of drivers having issues off a turn 4 wheel. And going back to the pits right now, under green flag conditions, we are 0 for 2 for drivers making it. We had Austin Espiti spin out, and we've had Marco Aurelio Brazil spin out. So far, we're 0 for 2 on drivers actually making it into the pits under green. So as this run continues, who's going to be the first one to actually get onto pit road?
So basically, the success ratio is about as good as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Ooh. As of now, yeah.
No comment.
No comment, and that's what we talked about at the start. I don't know. Right now, I'd say this track's showing itself to be more difficult than Milwaukee. Milwaukee, you do have to really get off the throttle and come in really quickly, but here, Milwaukee is such a quick hit-in. Here, it is you're sort of doing a road race in the middle of a 200-mile-an-hour oval race, and the car just does not like it.
There we are, still side by side than these guys. Ahead, Paul Jennings, Nathan Bookbinder, still side by side as well.
Jennings pushed up there, Will.
Well, we are really close to a big incident. We've had that almost 3 or 4 times. We've had ourselves Jim McClure scrapping out with TJ Mazik right now. But we have had some fantastic racing in the first 2/3 of this event. Just want to have a look down, actually. It's calmed down for just a moment, but we've got Richard Holiday, Nathan Bookbinder still scrapping it out on board of the number 10 machine.
And for these drivers, for Strout and Bookbinder and Holiday, it seems the action has been within about 3 car lengths of them the entire race. When Strout gets out of this car, wherever he finishes, this is probably going to be one of the most intense races he's been in, because everything that's happened has been around him. As we've got Nathan Bookbinder going to come into the pits. This is a tight spot. He made it.
Oh my word. First time. Well, we can't say that just yet. Does he get on towards pit road? Yes, he does.
And this may draw other cars, as we do have Randy Freeman exiting the pits, although he is 4 laps down. But one thing you got to think of, Will, once these drivers start pitting, they're going to be almost a second faster. So I think once we see the first car in the top 5 blink, you can't really wait that much, because if they're a second faster than you, you're going to have to come in early, as we've got 47 laps to go. So I think the window may be open.
Yeah, and of course, getting on to pit road is hard. Getting off a pit road isn't too easy either. It's not as bad as some tracks, but you've got to be careful. You don't touch the grass on the outside of the corner. Bookbinder is back out onto track then. So there is our first completed green flag pit stop of the season. Joe Branch going to go side by side with Bradley Walters. Battle for third. Undercut. Do I hear anyone say it? No one inside the top 10 has thought of it just yet.
At some point in time, one of these drivers is going to be the first to blink, but the hazards of that, as difficult as it is to pit under green, it is very easy to get a yellow under pit entry. So if you pit early, you do run the risk of being a lap down, and you don't want to have to get the wave around and work your way back up. There's not enough time. So that's the gamble right now. Do you early pit and get that second advantage, or do you wait? Because if you pit now and the yellow comes out, well, your race is pretty much shot.
TJ Mazik coming on towards pit road. We're going to show you a replay of this one. It was not pretty at all. As he came onto his pit box, he was very poor on entry. There you are, sliding the rear tyres. And that meant actually coming out of pit road. It almost looked like he was trying to do a 3-point turn there, Aaron. But he comes out in 9.1 seconds. But that is not how you try and come out of pit road. He was not quick there at all, as Flanagan's on pit road as we speak.
3-point turns, victory donuts that aren't victory donuts coming into the pit. So the story of this race thus far has been just pit stop hilarity.
Just keep it cool. Keep it cool as we've got more drivers scrapping it out.
Holgate and Goke coming in. And for Goke right now, this is the time. How hard does he want to push? Holgate needs to be the more conservative of the one. Goke really pushing it on entry, and I think he gained a couple lengths, but I think both drivers there gave it everything they could.
Oh yeah, so now we've got proper green flag pit stops occurring here, and we've got ourselves Tim Holgate in the Snake Pit Racing 06 machine, and we've got ourselves John Goke in the 08 car, both on towards pit road. So we've also got ourselves Richard Holiday coming back onto track, but let's have ourselves a look then at these guys as they're going to do their first green flag stop of the day, out and away. Well, a lot of wheel spin there, actually, for Tim Holgate. That cost him about a second by my books.
Yes, and also Bradley Walters has come in, and exiting the pits, there is a slight bump right as the track starts to turn, and if you catch that bump and you're on too much throttle, that rear end is gonna really want to slide out. It's not as pronounced as the bump at Indy, but very easy to get the exit here at Homestead wrong.
I'm not going to lie to you, the Grand Canyon's not as big a bump as the bump on the exit of pit road at Indy. 9.5 seconds for Bradley Walters then, and he is going to be passed by both Goke and Holgate. The pit entry times are going to be useful to tell here, and wow, Jonathan Goke, 50.575, half a second faster on his pit road entry compared to Tim Holgate, as Peters, Jennings and Manifold are all in the pits.
And one thing, Will, the good thing that Goke had, on road racing, oftentimes you use the car in front of you as a reference. So Goke coming in with our leader Holgate, that gave him a reference on just how fast he could go. So maybe a little bit of strategy there, pitting with somebody to use them as a reference point.
Everyone's on pit road. Danley Ench then leads a lap in this event in the Comet Hockey Club stroke IFC machine. He'll come back out and away 11.0 seconds. It will cycle through to a 2-horse race. Holgate versus John Goke for the race lead. 111 out of 150 scored complete. On board with Jonathan Goke. So, well, it took one person to successfully do it, Aaron, and then they all did it.
Yep, finally it was follow, not necessarily the leader, but follow somebody's example. And really nobody had issues, but having the first two people make an attempt, the drivers took notice of just the incidents that took place there. And you don't want to be the next person to really get a shout out by us, the announcers, on your great or lack thereof of pit entry. So thankfully everybody made it in, and that should be the end of green flag pit stops, I would think, unless somebody has an issue.
Or caution.
Or a caution. But in terms of green flag pit stops, I believe everybody's going to be in the good. Maybe Marco Aurelio Brazil, maybe a few laps short. He's going to be right on the cusp, but of course with that horrible entry he had being one lap down, which he is one lap down, and to let you know what that penalty did, had it just been the 15-second penalty, it wouldn't have been that bad because he would be on the lead lap. Right now he's about 5 seconds behind our race leader on the track, so that's the difference between him being in first or being on the tail end of the lead lap. So that little extra spin at the end that we saw Marco Aurelio Brazil do has set him back that one lap. So if the yellow were to come out now, he is make it the wave around, but so costly.
Oh yeah, as we got side by side, that's Joe Branch. That is actually over Brazil there. So that shows that Brazil, having to be on those tyres a couple of laps earlier than likes of Branch, likes of Doyle, etc. And look where Tim Doyle is. We talked about him having a rough day. Pit stops come, pit stops go, and he's up into P4.
That is just an absolute incredible drive through the field. That's what, Will, 17th to 4th in 50 laps?
That is fantastic, and that is why Tim Doyle is one of the world's most respected IndyCar sim racers, looking down to the inside of Brazil to put him a lap down in that ludicrous speed number 11 car. But, well, you can never discount Tim Doyle from any situations. He's a wily old fox. Add strategy into it as well, and he is almost often untouchable.
And speaking of untouchable, the wall was not untouchable for Marco Aurelio Brazil, as Doyle did pass him. Aurelio now getting what in NASCAR at Darlington we would call the Darlington stripe, but the I can't think of anything witty there to say. The Homestead white wall, no.
It's not a white wall, it's a turquoise wall.
Oh, good point. So, hey, that makes it sound good, but Marco did bounce off the turn 4 wall to add to the long list of drivers have just scraped it, which I can't believe that we haven't had somebody make really sizable contact. Drivers are really just brushing up against it and hitting it perfectly square. Can't get away with that too many times, but the drivers here today somehow are managing.
Well, you see, when I think about turquoise, I normally think of people wearing turquoise clothes or eyeliner. So maybe we could call it the Homestead tire liner sort of thing.
Yeah. We may be onto something here, which hopefully, by the next race we do at Homestead, we'll probably come up with something completely different. And hopefully
logical.
the drivers. Yeah. Kind of hard to come up with things on the fly. Looking at the times, though, Joe Branch is catching our race leader. He is inching ahead, but right now, Joe Branch appears to be the fastest car in the racetrack, running third. We saw him do this in the 16th Street Indy 500. We didn't call his name out till the final 10 laps, so Branch right now is on the move, but being 3 seconds behind, it's gonna take a caution, I think, but Branch right now is showing some excellent speed.
205.62 miles an hour is what he has done as the fastest lap of the day so far. So Joe Branch having himself a sterling effort, picking up from where he left off the last time we saw him in IndyCar competition here on RaceSpot TV. Ladies and gentlemen, Rick Motec are proud to sponsor the iAdvanced Motorsports Indy Elite Series Triple Crown. Rick Motec pride themselves on producing high-performance sim racing equipment. Their Real Gear line brings unbelievable realism to the sim racing experience by utilizing real motorsports equipment modified for sim racing. Just like their products, their customer service is held to the same high standard. As a thank you to the sim racing community, Rick Motec is offering $20 off any order of $100 or more. Simply head to rickmotec.com and at the completion of your order, use priority code ELITE. That's priority code ELITE. It's really interesting to note that Joe Branch has cut that gap down now to 1.3 seconds and he remains the fastest driver on the racetrack, Aaron. The gap, 1.2 seconds. He is 3.5 seconds away from victory lane. And, well, Holgate we know will be preserving his tyres, but Goke is a moving target right now for Joe Branch.
And for Branch right now, I think he's hoping that we get a yellow. Meanwhile, Tim Doyle also is cutting down into the race lead. So I have to wonder, is Holgate running what he really can, or was he maybe counting on a yellow and short-filled a little bit? Because really, looking at the lap times here, he is slightly off by about a tenth of where he was on the previous run. So Holgate may be just conserving the tires just a little bit, because when you have that 2.3 second lead, there is really no reason to burn the right front. So drivers behind maybe turning it up a little bit. For Holgate, I don't think there's any reason to burn off the tires.
It's interesting to note, though, you talked about Tim Holgate's strategy. Maybe he's trying to save fuel. Surely he must have learned something from the last time we saw him in competition. 2.7 seconds a gap last time by. He was a tenth of a second faster than John Goke. In fact, he was the fastest guy on the racetrack by at least half of a tenth of a second. So maybe Holgate just got something in reserve, but he's just not wanting to push too hard, too early, just in case they have a restart with 10 to go, and he's going to have to start asking those really serious questions.
Yeah, and for Goke, I think he is a few laps away from falling into the clutches of Joe Branch and Tim Doyle. I think early in this run, when he was right within striking distance of Holgate, he may have pushed that car a little bit too much, used up the tires, and he is a few tenths off. But for Joe Branch right now, he is just about within that range where he is going to start getting the turbulence. And at the same time, Tim Doyle is about to put pressure on Branch. So we're going to have a three-way battle here for the runner-up spot. So we are going to be coming to 20 to go here in just a few moments. Other thing, well, we do have 2 drivers in front of our leader, so lap traffic's also going to be a factor.
Yeah, as you can see, a top 15 on the left-hand side of your screen as we head ourselves towards 20 to go here in the first round of the iAdvance Motorsports Indy Elite Series, part of the Triple Crown, brought to you by Rick Motec. Here today on RaceBot TV. Streaming live, of course, on iRacing Live. Well, more green flag pit stops then. Number 24 machine, Ryan Heater, brings that car on towards pit road. We've also got Richard Holiday coming in as well. And, well, it looks as though they've learned how to pit under green all of a sudden, Aaron.
Yeah, so, Marco Aurelio Brazil's going to be pitting in. So I was right that he would be... We may have this, Marco pitted about 40. We may have another round of green flag pit stops, come to think of it.
Maybe even tires, no fuel. Who knows?
I think we're going to be as Branch is pitting, so yes, we are going to have another round.
Wow, here we come then. Joe Branch on towards pit road. Number 28, iAdvance Motorsports car coming in towards pit road. And, well, this will be a splash and dash, really. But it will be limited by the amount of time it will take for him to put tyres onto that car. Let's pull the graphic up and let's show you what he's got to do. Pit stop timer, 6.9. Out and away he will go. Will Holgate, well, realistically, Holgate and Goke will have to come in the next couple of laps if they've got any chance of winning this one, because Joe Branch, if he goes another 2-3 laps, he will be right there with Holgate once he's pitted.
And I have to wonder if maybe these drivers have been short filling because a lighter car goes faster, and maybe Holgate, when I mentioned maybe he was saving fuel, maybe he has enough to go to the end. Only time's going to tell, but the last thing Holgate's going to want is a strategy fuel race. As here comes Holgate.
Yep, Tim Doyle just set the fastest lap of the day, 205.82 miles an hour. Here is Tim Holgate. Bradley Walters is coming onto the pit road, we think. Jonathan Goke is already there. So, Holgate, let's get ourselves a look at the in-laps. We talked about that last time. It's going to be critically important to look at the in-laps for these guys. Well, John Goke did a 37.875 in-lap. Let's compare that to a 37.793 there for Tim Holgate. So, Holgate's second pit entry, much better than his first.
And, this is going to be this is going to really show if pitting early or later is better. Where is he going to come out in relation to Branch and Doyle? If Doyle is setting quick time of the race, Holgate may have waited a little bit too long. Holgate comes out of the pits. Where's Walters? Where's Branch? Where's Doyle?
Tim Doyle is ahead of John Goke right now. He's ahead of... No, he's right behind, actually, Tim Holgate. The gap's going to be 1.5 seconds, but from nowhere, Tim Doyle is ahead of Jonathan Goke, so Tim Doyle is up into a net P2 in this one. John Goke in third and Joe Branch in fourth, as Bradley Walters now circles on towards pit road. Well, that puts the field currently being led by Robert Gortz. And our thing is, if you can go 10 more laps and you get a yellow, you just knock yourself a win here, Aaron.
And any win is a good win. Doesn't matter how you get it. A win is a win is a win. And if you can sneak out a win by doing strategy, well, sometimes it isn't the fastest car. Sometimes if you outsmart your opponents, those are the wins that you remember when you can use that strategy to your favor. Although it seems as a driver, you remember those races that you lose on strategy a lot more than you remember the ones. Oh, yeah.
As we've got ourselves then, so far, a group of about 6 drivers, so 5 drivers who have yet to make an additional green flag pit stop. Robert Gortz, Michael Peters, Donald Strout, Dantley Inch, and Paul Jennings. As we have ourselves the driver Jim McClure heading himself back onto track right now in the 09 Grateful Dead car. There we can see Robert Gortz, who has now led himself 3 laps in this motor race. Interesting point to note, actually, lead change wise today, 13 different lead changes, Aaron.
And we've seen a couple on track, but lots of different leaders we've had today due to these cycles. 11 laps coming to the line, and for Robert Gortz, he has really backed down his speed, a 27.0 that time, so
Oh.
there's no way he can make it.
That's what we always say. That's what we always say in these events. But it's interesting to note right now that Tim Holgate, where he is on track, he's 13 seconds behind the race leader with 10.5 laps to go. So Robert Gort can afford to go a second a lap off pace. And we talked about that being the advantage, Aaron. 1 second per lap from fresh tyres to new. But that's when you got old tyres and brand new tyres. Not when you got yourself very worn tyres and scrubbed in tyres.
And not only that, at the same time, you are trying, as Gort's going to come into the pit, so that answers that one 9 laps ago. So a little anticlimactic there from what we were thinking. Maybe if it got to lap 145, then we would really have been shaking our heads wondering if he could make it, but Gort's pit's out of the lead.
Well, we still got Michael Peters, Donald Stroud, and Dan Lee Ench, who have not pitted, of course. And we've got ourselves Donald Stroud actually right behind Michael Peters. This is an on-track battle for the race lead. There's a number 76 machine who's coming to play into the party as well. That car is scored a lap down. That is Andres Eek there, who's just upsetting the handling of Donald Stroud's car a little bit. And I think that number 8 machine is not going to be a happy bunny with that one, because of the fact he might have felt as if he got held up by a slower lap down car.
At the other side of the coin, though, having 2 cars in front of him, he can get a little bit more fuel mileage by using the draft. So this really is, how hard do you want to push it? Both of them are right on the cusp. You want to try to push that driver in front of you or the driver behind you to run out of fuel. So Sprout, if he can really use those 2 cars and roll it through the corners, he is going to go to the inside. So going to make the pass on the lap car, and he now has no cars between him and the leader of Peters, which I talked to Peters a couple days ago. He has had no luck, he has said, on here for quite a while. But is this race, is this a sign of his luck turning?
Indeed. So, well, we're coming down now to the point that you almost don't want to come on towards pit road. We're on to lap number 145 of 150. There is Michael Peters. Now, if he comes across the start-finish line and we get a yellow, the race is going to be over, and you cannot come in with this few laps to go. Now, he's got himself a 4-second advantage over Tim Holgate. Holgate's just gone past Dan Liench, moving himself up into 3rd place. Last time by, he was 8 tenths of a second faster than Michael Peters. We've got ourselves 5 laps to go. This is going to be a grandstand finish by the looks of it.
Hey, yeah, I started by saying, how could it get any better? And right now we have 4 or 5 drivers that could win this race. Will Michael Peters have enough? Will he have to come in? And at the same time, Peters is looking in his mirror, looking at what Donald Stroud's doing, but also being aware of where Holgate is. Holgate's going to have to push. He may not get to him on track, but if he can make them use more fuel, that's going to be the key. And oh, do they have enough? And you know, if you're Michael Peters, you're hoping that the yellow comes out, just hoping, because you talked about stealing a win. Peters here could just do it.
Well, you're hoping that Donald Stroud takes a while to, you're hoping that Tim Holgate take a while to get past Donald Stroud there in the Team RFC car, but that gap has come down dramatically. Last time by Peters, and look at that! Stroud didn't make it difficult for him at all, and that is going to be Tim Holgate breezing past. 8 tenths of a second, 2 laps to go, and it's going to be on board with Tim Holgate. There's 3 miles of racing to go, and this feels like Texas a couple of years ago with Ed Carpenter. 2 laps to go. Can Michael Peters hold on?
This would be a phenomenal victory, even if he can just maintain the top 5. Here comes Holgate down the back straightaway. He's gonna look to the inside. Peters, I don't think, has anything for him.
Nope. So here we are then. Heartbreak for Michael Peters. We will see the white flag out this time by Peters having to just lean back on fuel. John Goke will go past Tim Doyle there, side by side into 1. White flag. 1 more lap to go. We've got ourselves Tim Holgate. He's got himself a 1.3 second advantage already over Michael Peters. Peters looks as though second place will be secure, but Tim Doyle and Jonathan Goke side by side as they head themselves through turn number 3 and 4. Holgate is going to win out here today. Peters, oh, he's out of fuel at the very, very end, and it's going to be, we think Tim Doyle will come home in second, but Michael Peters out of fuel at the end. What a shame there for Michael Peters.
It is a shame he didn't get second, but he ran out of fuel entering turn 3 and still finished 5th. So I think that's going to be a net win, but when you're up front on lap 148 and all it would take would be a yellow, when you're that close to victory, that may be one of the more sour tastes of having a top 5.
Oh yeah, so let's have a look then from Michael Peters' perspective. You can see in the background you've got that 2 wide racing going on, and then let's listen in to Michael Peters. Yeah, he's out, and now you're going to see he's going to lose these 2 positions. Heartbreak for Peters as they were side by side ahead, and that was fantastically close between those 2 drivers. We'll get ourselves one more look at that battle between the driver of Jonathan Goke and Tim Doyle. We'll have a look for my aerial coverage. We'll slow it down a little bit. This is a fascinating one to look at. They were side by side all of the last lap. So here they are off of turn number 4, heading themselves towards the start finish line, and Tim Doyle is going to win that one by about a car length, but Jonathan Goke made him work pretty hard for it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's get yourselves then a look at your final race results as well. There's Tim Holgate doing what Tim Holgate likes to do. It's a reverse victory lap, and here are your final race results, and you can see Holgate wins by 3.5 seconds. Then you're going to have yourself Tim Doyle in second, Jonathan Goke in third, Joe Branch fourth, Michael Peters rounds out your top 5. Then down the end, then Donald Strout, then Joe Flanagan, Bradley Walters, and Jim McClure. They are your top 10. Rest of the results coming up on your screen. Aaron, we need to take a breath after that one.
Wow, that was a quick 150. Very quick 150, or 150 laps, sorry. Race flew by. Not as many yellows as we have, not as much attrition as we typically have here, which led to some green flag pit stops, led to some great intrigue. And I'm going to say Tim Doyle's run to second from 17th is going to be, in terms of the races we've broadcast, well, I think one of the more phenomenal drives we have ever witnessed.
I agree. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more after this. Sunday night prime time here on Racebot TV, streaming live on iRacing Live.
Simulated racing can be awesome, but it can also be kind of a free-for-all. Interestingly, auto racing faced the same problem in its earlier days. Whether it was on the back roads, the beaches, or the city streets, the racing was fun. But there was always a certain level of chaos and danger, until some folks came along and put some order to all of this. Stuff like official racetracks, regulations about weight and equipment, and enforcement of standards. That's what gave us high-speed excitement, fast-paced action, and photo finishes. That's when racing became racing. The guys over at iRacing.com have made the same transformation in the world of sim racing. Sure, they've got the most accurate tracks and realistic cars out there, but that's just the start. See, iRacing analyzes the performance and results of each driver in every race, so you can be sure you're always placed in races where the competition will be tight, and that those reckless drivers who ruin it for us all are kept in the pits. Not to mention that with over 45,000 active members already in their vast community, you can find races day and night, so you can always get in on the action. You can even join a league of your favorite series. And since updates are always automatic, you don't have to worry about software and can focus on the track. Zip up your fire suit and check out iRacing.com.
Welcome back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Sunday Night Primetime here on Racebot TV, streaming live on iRacing Live. As what a race it has been here today for round number 1 of the iAdvanced Motorsports Indy Elite Series, a part of the Rickmotech High Performance Sim Racing Equipment Triple Crown. Tim Holgate, well, he didn't do so well in the final round of the 16th Street Racing League, but he bounces back with a W next to his name. Mr. Tim Holgate, hello.
Hey, Will. Good to be back here at the top side of the podium with you guys in the broadcast booth. So, awesome race there. I really got to thank my teammates for putting together an awesome car. I haven't been around to work on the setup at all, so big thanks to Niles Anders for putting together a car that pretty much dominated.
Well, talk us through your race, because at some points we were questioning, is it going to be Indy all over again for you with strategy? But it worked out to a T, especially that last dash to the line.
Yeah, the strategy came out. It was a little bit different because of we knew that we couldn't make it this time for sure, that we would have to have like a good long yellow, and then if we had a yellow we were going to pit anyway, so it didn't really make any sense to try and save gas. We didn't think there was any way we could make it, so we just pretty much went all out. I mean, all out with a degree of tire savings. We knew we were saving tires most of the race, but yeah, it was definitely different from Indy because it wasn't like razor thin like that race was.
Well, the crosswinds in turns number 1 and turn 3 and 4 seemed to be really hard today, and it meant that you were having to take a variety of different lines. How tough was it, especially with that long green flag run at the end and 2 green flag pit stops with a crosswind to navigate that car around this racetrack?
You know, we weren't too worried about it. I was staying off the wall pretty well. We were able to set the pace. People weren't able to get up too close to us, so yeah, pretty much we were leaving ourselves a lot of room in order to run the arcing line we were taking. There's a couple times in traffic where it's a little bit questioning, is the wind going to push us out into him? How hard can we push in there? I think I was having some back and forth with Marco sometime in the middle of the race, and that was a little bit interesting because you're trying to figure out the exact level of grip you can get away with and how hard you can push trying to get up there. But all in all, I'd say it wasn't bothering our car too much.
Tim Holgate coming home with the W. Floor's yours. Who do you want to give a shout out to?
I definitely want to thank Joe Branch for putting this league together. Got to thank Vic for doing all the stewarding for the races, and Brandon, and I forget, there's one other person, I forget who it was, so forgive me for that one, but all those guys put together. Thanks to you guys for putting the broadcast on. It's always great to watch.
Well, thank you very much there. Tim Holgate coming home with the victory here today. Top of your screen, you can see now your top 10 if you just missed it. Here today from the first round of the championship, Tim Doyle came home in second place in a closely fought battle at the end there with Jonathan Goke, and he stood by with Aaron Likens.
Tim Doyle, second place here today, and I have to begin with, on the final restart, you restarted something like P17, so how on earth did you go in about 60 laps from 17th to finishing second?
That's a good question. I guess I had red mist, and I was just focusing on passing each car, trying to get back to the front, trying to be in a good position in case the yellow came out, and it just kept going and going and going, and then I went back up to my teammates, and I was like, well, this isn't too bad, and I looked at the relative, and I was like, well, I'm 5.9 seconds. I said, that's pretty good makeup. I'm not that far behind the leaders, hopefully I can make something up on the pit stop.
Oh, passing here was at a premium here today. Did you do anything different with your car to allow your car to work the turbulence, unlike some other drivers which really struggled, especially in the turn 4 area?
Well, no, surprisingly, the cars, I didn't make any adjustments, wings, or anything like that. Just working the weight tracker going through the pack. You get to them and you'd loosen it up a little bit and then clear them and get back to -1, -2 weight tracker. And, the car was well balanced, and, I guess against them it was really good.
Final lap, close battle for that second spot, which you didn't know at the time it was going to be for second with Michael Peters running out of fuel. But how was that last lap battle with Jonathan Goke?
Yeah, he got that run on me, and he went low, and I wanted to slide back underneath him, but he got there, and there was nothing I could do, so I figured, I'm going to have to do it on the outside. And we were racing so hard on that last lap, and I, wasn't even worried about who was around me, who we were coming up on. And next thing you know, we're going into 4, and I see Peters there, and he's in white, and I was like, well, that's for position 2, and it got really, really tight there, but Jonathan and Peters did a great job. That was fun.
Well, definitely, I say your drive up, one of the more phenomenal drives up through the field that we've witnessed in quite some time. Looking ahead to Gateway, think you can improve on second, maybe go for the win there next week?
Well, I think Niles has us a good car. I know Vic, my teammate, was always really, really good there. I think if I can get some help, pointers and stuff to drive the track, I think, we can be really good, and I'd be happy with the podium there.
Well, that is Tim Doyle finishing second in in phenomenal style. Don't know what else to say.
Well, it was a fantastic finish with Tim Doyle, of course, coming home in that second place. But the other part of that is Jonathan Goke. He came home in P3. John, a car length away from P2. Talk us through your race.
I was just so ecstatic to be here in this new league, and the entire race I was just sideways as can be. The temperatures were extremely hot, and funny, for some reason I guess I wasn't listening to my crew chief or my spotter or anything, because when I went after the checker flag and passed him and went flying off, I thought we were still racing. So I was extremely excited to get P2, but man, I know, but it was an outstanding race. We definitely had to work for with the talent on this field.
High pitched, high drama, high wins here today. How tough was it working with those class wins?
This is my first real test of building my own car, and with the track temperature being so hot, and it looks like there was a good bit of a crosswind going into turn 1. It was definitely a little different. It was different, but it was definitely really slick out there, definitely on the access roads. But it's real rewarding actually building your own set and having an awesome result first time out.
Well, we'll see you, of course, at Gateway. Gateway, a very different animal to this, but it's one that I think is going to produce some good racing. You looking forward to it?
I normally do. I love Gateway. Slow corners, real flat, get the power off the corner. It'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that too. Definitely it'll be a different setup monster than this thing, but keep learning.
Well, there we are. John Goke coming home in third place. Well, we've got ourselves a couple more people to get a couple of quick words with, and we'll start with Donald Strout, of course, coming home with a pretty good finish here today, Aaron.
Yes, Donald Strout had a very interesting race. Well, it seemed every time you were anywhere in the track, the action was right around you. Take us through your 7th place finish.
Well, it was kind of an exciting race for me. I qualified pretty well, and I was very pleased with the position. The team practiced a lot and worked very hard, and I was pleased with that. And then I just basically tried to run as clean as I could, and there were some guys a little bit faster than me, but we were consistent, and we had an interesting fuel strategy because we basically ran out of fuel about 100 yards before the finish line at the end.
And as mentioned, 7th place. Saw you battling with Michael Peters there at the end. Was your mentality push him to run out of fuel, or was he pushing you to run out of fuel?
No, Michael and I are good friends. We don't push each other at all. But I would say basically I was just trying to run my best race, and that's basically the philosophy of our team, is to do the very best we can. And I wasn't trying to push him, and I don't think he was trying to push me. We were just running our race and doing the best we could.
Oh, that's Donald Strout. Well, 7th place, which qualified 6th. He was mired middle of the field early in the race, but strategy turned it around and came home with an impressive 7th place here tonight.
Yep, one of the drivers that ran out of fuel, probably a couple of 100 yards up the road, was Michael Peters. And Michael, you came with 2 to go with the race lead. You came to the checkered, sputtering out of fuel in P5. But overall, much better start to this season than what we saw for you in the 16th Street Racing League.
Oh yeah, I'm thrilled with the finish. Kicking myself a little bit. I was watching fuel from the start of the race. You guys saw it when I stayed out, when everybody else pitted, and I could see it was going to be a one-stop race if we stayed green. I just missed it. I needed about 0.3 of a gallon, and I would have been probably able to hold off Tim as well.
Well, The strategies here today was a difficult one because, of course, it was determined more by tyres than by fuel itself. But how hard was it to manage those tyres over these long green flag runs and then actually find a way of wheeling that car on towards pit road?
Brad Walters worked his butt off, getting us just a beautiful handling car. I was actually considering taking wing out on the last stop because the car just handled beautifully. Tire wear was never a concern. I just took it easy early in the run, and guys fell right back to me.
Well done on getting yourself a top 5 here today. Michael Peters coming home in at that 5th place. And finally, we've got ourselves down at the end, stood by with Aaron.
Dan, 6th place, missed out by the top 5 by 0.2, but how did you work your way to that 6th place finish?
Fuel. Just saved as much as I could. I noticed on the last green flag stop that I was the last one in. I managed an extra lap there, so I just put it in 6th gear and tried to save all the fuel I could to the end, and it worked.
We had many different strategies here this evening, but when you do get a top 10, almost a top 5 on strategy, isn't that just one of the better feelings when you get that and you have that fuel strategy and just missed out on a top 5, but, well, could have been much higher here this evening, but 6th place, is a strategy race more fun?
I think they're equally fun. I knew I didn't have a car that would win on speed. I was down around 16th or 17th place, and I saw an opportunity. Everybody was driving a good race, and I didn't think there would be another yellow, so I played the fuel game. And it is a cool feeling when it finally works out. Most of the time you try a strategy like that, it just doesn't seem to work out, but it did tonight. And I am really happy with the 6th. I want to thank my team, Racers for Christ, RFC, for putting me in a good car tonight and racing with me and towing me when I needed to save a little fuel, and it all worked out great. So I want to thank them for getting me to the finish line.
Well, that is Dan Lee Inch, and as we mentioned in the broadcast, you so often don't remember the races that you lost on strategy, but you remember the races you didn't. Oh boy, I'm slaughtered.
You remember the races that you won on strategy, you don't remember the ones that you lost.
Thank you.
Woo!
That's the way you say it. Thanks, guys, for covering this tonight, and it was a lot of fun. Great way to open the season for RFC.
Well, Aaron, I can actually make that point. Well, two of my favourite races two of my best wins actually have been strategy races. Of course, there was the infamous run out of fuel twice at Talladega situation that became IndyCar folklore. And then, of course, there's that one time at Charlotte Motor Speedway when allowing a teammate to go past you had that Michael Schumacher and Martin Brundle 1992 Spa thing going on. They're the hot knife through butter. You're just sitting there saving fuel. 10 laps to go. I literally got asked, "You've not been saving fuel, have you?" Second that they had no response back on the radio, I think they realised there had been.
I'll agree with that comment that my most memorable win, it was the first time I won on an official open IndyCar race on iRacing.com, and won at Indianapolis of all tracks, and by running out of fuel coming off of turn 4, had a big enough lead, and so I guess that one win you get on strategy, I guess, it does stay with you, because I remember that race. That was one of my, well, as you mentioned, favorite races when you do pull it off. It's so difficult. You do so many strategies, and you and I comment on this so often, that when you do commit to a strategy, you can't waffle on it like Tony Kanaan did at Pocono several years ago. When you go with it, you got to stick with it, and there's so many variables that can come in and throw your strategy off the rails, but tonight we actually saw it pay off.
Indeed we did. Ladies and gentlemen, Rick Motec are proud to sponsor the iAdvanced Motorsports Indy Elite Series Triple Crown. Rick Motec pride themselves on producing high-performance sim racing equipment. Their Real Gear line brings unbelievable realism to the sim racing experience by utilizing real motorsports equipment modified for sim racing. Just like their products, their customer service is held to the same high standard. As a thank you to the sim racing community, Rick Motec is offering $20 off any order of $100 or more. Simply head to rickmotec.com, and at the completion of your order, use priority code ELITE. That's priority code ELITE. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is pretty much all we have time for here today. Well, next time out, Aaron, it's Gateway.
And the races we've seen at Gateway can either be green flag all the way or gonna be, the Flagman Arms is gonna get a workout. It can go both ways, but a very entertaining track, both ends of the track, or each separate end of the track, radically different than the other one. Very hard to get a balanced car that likes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So it's going to be a fun one. And as entertaining as tonight is, well, I think next week's going to just add to the excitement. I have no idea what we're going to see next.
Well, depending on the wind situation, we might actually have to see some guys using that middle brake pedal, as well as a noisy one on the right-hand side.
There's a middle brake pedal in these cars?
I know, right?
Yes, when you do have to use a brake, that adds a whole different effect. Then you're working with brake bias, and going down into turn 1 at Gateway is one of the more difficult turns in all of IndyCar.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of our coverage here tonight on Racebot TV, a part of Racebot TV Primetime as we round out a historic week here on iRacing Live. Thank you so much to everyone who's been a part of our coverage here tonight. From myself, Will Vinton, and from Aaron Likens, this has been round number 1 of the iAdvance Motorsport Indy Elite Series, brought to you by iAdvance Motorsports, based in Indiana. We shall talk to you all next time. Bye-bye.
That was a lot of fun.